Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the professor arrived, accompanied by a retinue of staff. His expression was unreadable, a practiced mask. When he spoke, his words were clinical and distant, like the diagnosis itself was already a foregone conclusion. The CT scan shows extensive damage. Only 5% of your lungs are functioning. The situation is severe. His gaze shifted away, almost as though he couldn't be bothered to look at the human being lying there before him. He added, "There is no further treatment we can offer. Oxygen is your only option now." In that moment, something within me snapped. It was as if every ounce of frustration, betrayal, and pain boiled to the surface, surging through my weakened body with a force I didn't know I still possessed. I felt a primal scream rise within me, louder than any pain I'd felt in my lungs. The helplessness, the constant bleeding of my funds, and the realization that I was nothing more than a paying guest in this hospital hit me with overwhelming clarity. I was beyond despair. I was furious. "You knew!" I roared, my voice hoarse but driven by a deep, untamed anger. "You knew there was nothing else you could do, yet you dragged me through this!" My voice reverberated off the sterile walls, resonating with a pain that went deeper than physical suffering. The nurses, attendants, everyone in the room turned, some eyes wide with shock, others blank with detachment. I was shouting with all the strength I had left, my heart pounding, my breaths shallow, but I couldn't stop. "All this time, you kept me here, running tests, adding to my bill, pretending there was a plan. You don't care about healing, you care about profit." Every word drained me further, but the rush of speaking this long-buried truth fueled me. My lungs burned with each breath, my body struggling to keep up with the fury that consumed me. For a fleeting moment, I felt the power of every grievance, every injustice, and every unnecessary cost they had imposed upon me. The professor recoiled, his mask of indifference cracking just enough to reveal a flash of surprise. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to fight back, to challenge the charade. I could feel my heart racing erratically, my oxygen plummeting. The room began to blur, sounds growing distant. The professor shouted something to the staff, his voice carrying a new urgency. "He needs to be moved to the intensive care unit immediately." I could sense the satisfaction in his tone. He had finally succeeded in pushing me to the brink, justifying yet another costly step in their calculated routine. I turned to my brother, who had been watching everything unfold with helpless rage and fear in his eyes. With the little breath I had left, I whispered, "Remember this. Remember what I'm saying. If you don't get me out of here, I'll never forgive you." My words were desperate, final. I had never been so certain of anything. If I stayed here, I would die. My brother leaned down, his own eyes glistening, his face taut with emotion. He whispered back, "I promise you I'll do everything I can. I trust you with God, the one who never fails those in need." His words were like a lifeline, a fragile promise that felt as thin as my own breath. Yet it was all I had. The descent into isolation. As the professor gave his orders, the nurses moved quickly, removing the last of my belongings as if stripping away any remaining piece of dignity I had left. My mobile, the only fragile link to the outside world, was taken from me along with everything else that had once made me feel like a person. They wrapped me in the thin, stark hospital gown, a uniform that felt more like a shroud. In that moment I realized that, once they wheeled me into the sterile silence of the intensive care unit, I would be completely alone. My brother and friend, my last defenses against this place, would not be allowed to follow. I was utterly at their mercy. The staff moved with mechanical precision, handling me like a package rather than a patient. My brother tried to stay close, whispering encouragement, but I could see the devastation in his eyes. This was a man who had always been my anchor, someone who had traveled from his own life and new family just to be here for me. Now he was reduced to a spectator, unable to shield me from this next descent. He leaned in close, his face etched with determination, whispering one last promise. "I will not let you down. I will fight to get you out of here." His voice cracked, the words heavy with conviction. "Now, I leave you with God. Trust in him. He will not forsake you." As they prepared to move me, he held onto my hand for as long as he could, a silent assurance that he would continue fighting even when I couldn't see him. It was a small comfort, but a powerful one. I felt a sliver of calm in that moment, clinging to his promise like a lifeline. But as soon as his hand slipped from mine, a hollow dread filled the void. The nurse at my side pushed the stretcher into motion, and I felt the cold wheels of fate turning beneath me. As they wheeled me down the long, fluorescent-lit corridor, the weight of isolation settled around me. There was no more illusion of safety, no more familiar faces to fight for me. Each corner we turned led me further into the unknown, and with every passing second, the fear gnawed deeper. The intensive care unit awaited, a place of sharp, clinical detachment, where I would be reduced to numbers on a monitor, statistics in a file. As we passed strangers and medical staff alike, I felt their curious glances, some sympathetic, others indifferent. I wished I could shield myself from their stares. To hide my vulnerability, I was fully exposed, both in body and spirit, and yet I was invisible, a mere complication to be managed, a case to be processed. Finally, we reached the doors of the intensive care unit. The bustling world of the hospital fell away, replaced by a solemn silence that felt almost oppressive. Inside, there were glass-walled rooms where patients lay isolated, each of us confined to our own small prison. The absence of family, friends, and familiar comforts heightened the sterility of the place, as if all humanity had been stripped from this ward. The nurse maneuvered my bed into one of the private rooms, sealing the glass door shut behind her. I lay there, helpless, tethered to machines that beeped and hissed, the only sounds breaking the silence. I could no longer see my brother, nor hear his voice. The last connection to my outside world had been severed. Alone in that glass box, I felt the weight of despair settle over me like a shroud. My life was now in the hands of people who seemed immune to suffering, indifferent to fear. As I gazed through the glass at the faint, distorted figures moving outside, I closed my eyes, clinging to my brother's words and my own faith with everything I had left. I whispered a silent prayer, asking for strength, for courage, and for the faintest sliver of hope, that I would somehow survive this place. It was the only thing that kept me grounded as I drifted into the unknown, my heart pounding in rhythm with the machines that now determined my every breath. The fight for freedom. While I lay in the ICU, fading in and out, my brother was downstairs in a battle of his own. It was only later that I learned what lengths he and my friend had gone to in order to secure my transfer. They had found a new hospital willing to admit me, a place with a professor experienced in severe COVID-19 cases. The professor had accepted my case site unseen, fully briefed on my condition, and had even prepared an intensive care unit specifically for my arrival. But the hospital administration wasn't about to let me go easily. The hospital refused to release me without a new round of payments, fabricated charges added with every unnecessary test and procedure they had imposed, my brother argued, demanding they turn over my records so they could be transferred to the new facility. But the hospital demanded my passport instead. They wanted leverage, and to them, I was nothing more than a revenue source. My brother, determined not to be intimidated, reminded them that I was a British citizen. "If you take his passport, I will contact the embassy," he warned, unwavering in his stance. The staff hesitated, realizing the gravity of what they were up against. My friend, translating every word, fought alongside my brother, refusing to let them bully us into submission. He spoke firmly, advocating for my right to safe, competent care. Despite their best efforts, the hospital administration wouldn't relent. Frustrated and desperate, my brother reached out to every contact he had, including a kind neighbor who was a local citizen. The neighbor, aware of the challenges we faced and eager to help, offered to pay a deposit just to clear the final hurdle and speed up the process. Between them, my brother, my friend, and my neighbor scraped together what the hospital demanded, giving the administration no further excuses to hold me. With the deposit finally paid, the last barrier to my escape was removed. The ambulance staff was summoned, and the grueling transfer process began. As they fought for me outside, I lay inside, waiting for the salvation I could only hope was on its way. The ambulance ride and arrival. In the ambulance, I was teetering on the edge, caught between worlds, with hope slipping like sand through my fingers. Every breath felt like my last, my chest barely able to expand against the crushing weight that seemed to bear down on me from all sides. I stared at the little oximeter clamped to my finger, watching in disbelief as it displayed a blood oxygen level of 70%, a cold reminder of just how close I was to the edge. One of the paramedics caught sight of the number and sprang into action, his face a blend of urgency and shock. They turned up the oxygen flow as high as it would go, and the driver immediately accelerated. The vehicle jerked forward, throwing me from side to side, but I barely noticed. I was too busy trying to absorb each precious drop of oxygen, fighting for every second to keep my heart and mind steady. Every movement was a struggle, each moment an eternity. I felt the ambulance hit rougher patches of ground, bouncing me as they navigated the route, the vehicle rushing forward with no care for comfort or stability. With every jolt and turn, my awareness wavered. I drifted in and out, the seconds melting together, slipping from clarity to darkness. I had nothing but my faith to hold on to, whispering silent prayers as the world blurred around me, clinging to the hope that, by some miracle, I'd make it through this relentless struggle. Finally, the ambulance slowed, the doors swung open, and they wheeled me out, the rush of night air hitting my face. They moved quickly, taking me down a quiet, unfamiliar side entrance at the back of the building. The hallway was short, but even then, I felt each bump, each twist, every jolt of the stretcher beneath me. Moments later, I found myself inside their intensive care unit, the room nothing like I expected. The initial relief of arriving somewhere new mixed with a strange dread as I took in my surroundings. A room of doubt and determination. As they wheeled me into the intensive care unit, my first reaction was disbelief. This wasn't the high-tech sanctuary I'd envisioned. It felt more like a storage area than a place for critical care. Hospital supplies and equipment lined the corners, cluttering the space as if I'd been placed in a forgotten room rather than an ICU. All four walls were concrete, except for two large windowed sections, one along the door-facing wall and another to my left. Through the glass, I could see the vast, open corridor where rows of other patients lay in beds side by side under a single, shared ceiling. All connected to various machines. I was the only one isolated in this small glass-walled enclosure, separated but still exposed. The setting was jarring. Doubts flared,